Thank you for joining Sertl Optics 360 Pulse. I am your host, Jennifer Sertl, Director of Marketing at Sertl Optics. 360 imaging is part of everyday life, and Sertl Optics technology is being designed to accelerate the delivery of life-saving resources, ensure aerospace safety, and increase immersive experience participation. This podcast, 360 Pulse, is dedicated to featuring immersive technology and innovators that are working on these capabilities. Today's guest is Oliver Mitchell. Oliver Mitchell is partner of FF Venture Capital, located in New York City, that has over 85 companies in its portfolio with over $15 billion in market cap. Oliver first joined FFVC in 2014 as a limited partner, and then in 2018 as a venture partner. Today, he takes a leading role on the investment team, extending the portfolio's deep tech position with holdings in robotics, drones, artificial intelligence, and industrial automation. He's invested in several robotics companies, including Plus One, Mana, Burrow, Skycatch, Vumu. He serves on the board of two of the FFVC portfolio companies, Civ Robotics and Cambrian Intelligence. And when I write the blog for this, I'll be sure to create links for all of these exciting robotics companies. Sertl Optics had a great time at the FFVC Drone and Robotics Summit last September. And so it's a super exciting pleasure to have Oliver as our guest. Welcome, Oliver.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
That's great. So before making deep tech investments as a VC, in our research, we found that you actually had a children's story startup of your own. Can you tell us the story behind Robot Galaxy?
Absolutely. So I've been doing startups and VC investing for now close to 30 years. I've been a startup operator where I built companies and sold them to big multinationals like America, actually was sold to American Express, or Homes Protection. That was sold to ADT, which is now part of Johnson Control. Robot Galaxy came out of seeing a need in my own family that there was many places for my girls, but there was nothing there for my son at the time. And being an entrepreneur, I started to dig deeper, and I created a build your own robot experience. And it was really started that simple, and it grew into a STEM-based robot company with retail stores here in the Northeast, as well as a partnership with Toys R Us. And then with department stores like Nordstrom's and Macy's. And then also we had a virtual world where it was a multiplayer game and a comic book storyline published by IDW, which also published for Transformers. And so what kids did is they came to our stores, they were explorers, they built, their favorite robot characters, and from all the different pieces that they can combine, it was over 1,000 different combinations that could be possible for their creation. Once they've assembled them, they went to their programming stations to program them to say their name and nickname. And then they launched them to the seventh ring of Saturn, which is part of the Genesis story in the comic books. When they came home via USB, they plugged them into their computers, and they leveled up in the games from cadet to commander, getting new eye color, new sound effects, new phrases from the comic book. And then, we had a whole multimedia strategy around the comic book line and everything there. So it was a great introduction to robotics. And in 2012, I decided to do something different and go back to tech investing. And about a year and a half earlier, my marketing department created a blog for me called Robot Rabbi. They know I'm Jewish. And I was like, wow, that's kind of cute. What am I going to do with that? So I started to write about the real robotics industry. And that really helped me transition to build up a portfolio on my own using Autonomy Ventures, about a dozen positions where I had 8 exits, 2 IPOs, and 1 unicorn from that.
Wow. I really like to draw threads on the program if I hear themes that kind of repeat themselves. And recently we had the inventor of Steadicam, Garrett Brown, who talked about how important it is to actually create an invention from a real problem that you have in your life. And I really loved hearing from Robot Galaxy the fact that you actually were trying to really create value for your family. And that whole quest created, this 30-year career that you have, which is remarkable. How do you see robotics evolving over the next decade, since you have so much contextual intelligence? And what do you think will be the most significant advancements?
Wow, that's a lofty question. Uh, I think that the decade's a long time, so I'm going to start in the near future a little bit sooner. The areas that I'm most excited by that where we invest in, are kind of boring categories that have a huge market need. So first off is in manufacturing. We are all familiar with the supply chain shortage, with the labor deficit in highly skilled jobs. And we're seeing that mechatronics playing a leading role in highly skilled manufacturing. A company that you mentioned earlier, Cambrian Robotics, has computer vision technology that works with cobots, whether the Universal Robotics Arm or ABB or Fanuc and others, and it provides them with intelligence to do highly manipulative tasks that would normally be done by fingers. And so, one of the use cases that they do is they put together the plunger and the syringe, picking out, translucent parts, putting them together, and then putting them and boxing them. And that's really complicated, and that would normally have to be done with fingers in a clean room. And so the robots can do that extremely fast, much faster than workers. And the workers can manage now, rather than managing just one line, they can manage 10 lines and really be doing a lot more creative tasks. So there's a lot of upscaling that's going on with the workers there, and using a variety of different sensors like Cambrian, we're able to accomplish lots of tasks, and not just in medical device manufacturing, but it goes into automotive, it goes into EVs. If you ever deconstructed an electric vehicle, you'll see that it looks like spaghetti of electrical wires. And and one of the things that Cambrian does is it plugs in to the harness all the wires and in a very precise way. And even that can be mind-boggling to a human on the line, and the robot can do it very quickly and efficiently. So that's in manufacturing. Another area is quality assurance. Is right now quality assurance is done on a 1% of every units, and using vision, which is a big area that you're doing a lot of your podcasts about, is that Cambrian is able to detect coolant leaks in refrigerators and so forth like that is unseen by the naked eye. So it's streamlining that, delivering a better product, a faster product, and maybe onshoring work that was previously sent to Asia, bringing that closer to the consumer and bringing manufacturing resources back to the United States and Europe, which is very exciting for us. Another area that I think is really being transformed is there's a lot of, I had a retail concept, right? And if you go to malls, you see there's been a huge customer behavioral shift that whether it's grocery, people using Instacart and others for quick fulfillment to their door, or whether it's ordering online from Amazon, Walmart, Target, and getting next day delivery. Now that creates a massive amount of stress at the distribution center and delivering those goods. And we're seeing we have Plus One Robotics that works with big, shippers out there and works in warehouses, doing, depalletizing the trucks, doing pick and pack, putting them on the trucks and making sure that things are happening efficiently. And once again, it's not about displacing workers. It's about making the workers that you have more productive. And we know that, the hiring can't happen fast enough. So the robots are really fulfilling those roles there and making, the labor force that you have on site be able to accomplish a lot more. And finally, I think an area, that is really ripe and that we're seeing a huge amount of disruption is in field robotics and so construction. So for example, Civ Robotics works in infrastructure, and so it does autonomous surveying for solar farms. So typically you'd have cartographers or surveyors that would go out And what we're seeing is if you look at all these trades of like master plumbers, master electricians, cartographers, and that there is a very small percentage of people under the age of 35 who are going into that as a career. And then post-pandemic and even pre-pandemic, we saw a high retirement rate. And so that there's just not enough people out there with those highly skilled, jobs out there that are able to be readily deployed. And so there's a huge strain on getting these jobs started, and because surveying is the first step on a job. And with the infrastructure bill, there's a huge amount of investment in solar. So if we want to move to a renewable future, utilizing solar and building solar farms, we need to do that quickly and efficiently. And so what Civ does, in fact, today is the day that they mark their 4 millionth point out there. They mark all the points where all the piles for all the electricals, all the solar cells will go, whether in Mojave Desert, Texas, Arizona, and something like that, for all these solar farms. And so rather than having a team of surveyors, you got one guy in a truck with an iPad, and it's marking all the points, and so they can quickly do build out the farms. And once we're able to survey, we could do other jobs, there, whether it's towing, whether it's reporting, whether it's, providing inventory management, and so forth. So there's a lot happening in construction beyond Civ Robotics, with robots in fulfilling those holes within the labor workforce. And finally, agriculture. We're going to have 9 billion people on the planet. Food scarcity is a real thing. And so being able to use machines to be able to deliver quality goods, healthy goods to people in a timely fashion.
Literally, I think there were 5 programs like on your response to that. There's just so much good news relative to how this tech is used for good. I am going to lean a little bit into the robot rabbi as I think about a quote that has really kind of inspired me. I studied existential philosophy in college, and Isaac Asimov's "The saddest aspect of life right now is that science gathers knowledge faster than society gathers wisdom." And Asimov also had kind of 3 laws of the technology. Law 1, a robot may not injure a human being through inaction, allow human beings to come to harm. Law 2, a robot must obey orders given to it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And Law 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first and second laws. Recently, reading on Medium, from a gentleman named A.P. Bird, he says, "Why the golden rules of robotics are not keeping us safe." Can you please kind of weigh in on ethics in robotics and some of the key ethical dilemmas and your recommendations, given your bird's eye view of this whole industry?
Yeah. Disclaimer, I'm not a rabbi. My blog is named Robot Rabbi. A rabbi is a teacher, so I really am not an ethicist. I do think that as an investor, I do believe that the investments that I make will hopefully improve the quality of life of the planet and people that live on it. So I do think a lot about the ethics of machines. There's been a lot of discussion. I think there was Shelley Palmer, who, if you've ever been to CS, he does these tours around CS, and he put out his newsletter about, I think the U.S. military command was talking about how other nation states are deploying machines and AI, offensive technologies in combat. So what that means is robots with guns that do not have a human in the loop. And so clearly there's a lot of ethical questions around such things. And so I tend to stay away from those types of investments and so forth like that. Clearly we, last night at a dinner, there were a lot of former military people there. It's not one of our idea dinners. It was actually our 64th idea dinner. We had people from a military contractor who, has a big corporate VC. We had somebody who's the chief digital officer of a big manufacturing company who spent 25 years in the Israeli intelligence. And we had somebody from the DOD there and so forth like that. And I would say, when I was asking everyone at the end, what are you excited by? And it was about, saving lives was one of the common things around the table. And for people that came from the military, it's like keeping our soldiers safe. So I think, yes, we do want to deploy technologies that save lives and keep soldiers safe. But at the same time, we want to do that in an ethical fashion. And there's much people smarter than I am who could figure out, what is the workflow for those types of decision processes. I think, bringing it closer to sort of like enterprise level deployment, clearly it's 2023. I'm still waiting for my Uber to pick me up from 2021 for my robotaxi and here at the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
And so, we're seeing that, going to your first quote, is that, the technology moves faster than the social and political regulations can. And so we saw this with just Uber, with the gig economy, that New York City was flooded with drivers. Many of these drivers who did not know the streets of New York, and while we're a grid system, the streets of New York are very particular and something like that. And we saw that, people who paid, close to $1 million for what's called a medallion, which gives you the right to drive a taxi in New York, see that medallion asset fall to below $100,000. And so clearly the social policy, the regulators were unable to catch up to the amount of customer adoption that the technology brought. And so one of the things that I try to do, is try to coach my founders, and also as a fund, have very close relationship with policymakers. And so I do believe that regulations are not this bad thing. And I'm not political, I don't belong to any party. I do think that just, they're the guardrails, and they can really help innovators build, within those guardrails. And without regulation, you could be building something over here that eventually will be displaced, based upon the regulations. And so one example of that is we work, one of our investors, the Empire State Development Corp, which is from the state of New York. And we are very involved in the economic opportunities in the Central Valley of New York, which is about 4 hours north of here in the Finger Lakes, with an accelerator called Genius New York. That's located in Syracuse in the Tech Garden. And we've had two companies come out of there, Sim Robotics and Boomoo, which formerly was known as Car Scanner. And, we really do believe there's something really happening there that's very unique and special. And so bringing together, once again, to put a bow around this, is that by partnering with the economic development group of our state, we can deploy innovations that, that hopefully the policymakers are abreast of, that can actually get deployment that is really meaningful, and that their investment in innovation has a long tail and doesn't get, displaced by regulation and so like that.
So I have three responses to that really robust answer. The first is that I'm thankful that Sertl Optics is part of Genius, and we were part of cohort number 5. So I'm really excited. And we have it. Kara was, Zach, our founder, was the very first guest, kind of creating the context for this program. And then Kara was our second guest. So I love that circle.
Okay.
The second point, I think, was that I'm wondering, actually, I think second and third is I'm wondering, how do we get invited to idea number 65 dinner? That sounds so exciting. Just being a little bit playful there. And I do. The third was just that I do think that governance is an important conversation, and I deeply respect your brand name and also your role in this. And actually, one of the reasons why there's so many VC firms that do invest in hard tech that we did research on, and we chose your company for our program because of the due diligence and the tech for good point of view that you have. So I think I've got 2 more questions. Not many investors invest in deep tech these days. It seems like software is the new plastics. But what makes an investor like you excited about hardware startups? And why do so many other VCs shy away from this field?
Yeah. So in full disclosure, we focus on 2 areas, B2B SaaS, which includes enterprise software, applied AI, fintech, insurtech, legal tech, and then automation technologies, drones, robotics, IoT, machine learning, remote sensing. I think that a couple things, and maybe this is helpful to the founders, we see hardware as a vector for software. So we're not the right investors to invest in the newest eVTOL for commuting from Westchester to New York City, or a complete new EV shuttle down Fifth Avenue. But we will invest in the systems that drive those technologies. And so I think that for investors, we like to have platform technologies that can be deployed across a wide array of verticals. And so we obviously want focus. And I teach entrepreneurship and management change, an MBA course, and one of the a lot of my curriculum is about a bowling pin strategy, is starting in one meaningful area and expanding wide from there. And so we do like focus. We do like, finding your kingpin and knocking the others down. And I think for in case of Civ, they're not pigeonholed to solar or even surveying. The next vertical they're going into, right now is roadway repair and marking and striping all the lines out there and something like that. So it's a little bit of a pivot, but it's not so giant that it's a new product, a new start. And so I think that likewise for deep tech investors, and that's somewhat of a subjective word. Deep tech could mean material science. It can mean, climate, it can mean a variety of different things to who you're speaking to. So, but I think for us in automation technologies, we like to see, that the software is really the proprietary edge, and that the hardware is being built around the software because there's no hardware available yet for this type of innovation. I think, going to the second point is that, as investors, we want to invest at scale, and we raise capital too, and we are fiduciaries for our limited partners to provide them a financial return. And typically, the returns early on, say the 3 to 5 year sales of the companies, are not the big returns that are going to return the whole fund. The ones that are going to return the whole fund are going to be in year 8, 9, 10, 11 as well. Mm-hmm. Hardware tends to be and is perceived, and I'll get into my view on it in just a second, perceived to be not scalable, very difficult, very costly, very capital intensive. And so people do not feel that they're going to get a meaningful return off of there. And in addition, the liquidity events within robotics and hardware have not, been anywhere close to what they have been, in the software world. And finally, it's still very early on. Everyone said it's the first inning, maybe it's the second or third inning. But, while if you look at, cloud-based technologies, web-based technologies, mobile technologies, we're definitely past the 7th inning stretch. And so so people are getting higher multiples. And so now my view is that everything's going to be automated, and everything is being automated. And so I do think we are going to get those big returns, because we're not going to get those big returns in 2023. But if I'm thinking about 2028, 2030, Yeah, I'm a holder, I'm an investor, and we're going to see big returns. And so my goal as an investor is how do I build these companies to scale and make sure that they have the margins to be able to be self-sustaining to get there. And so, what has brought automation possible now is that the cloud that data is available anywhere, and we have sensors everywhere, including in our pocket and on the street and what have you. And so all this data is available. So all the training data is available. The cloud makes it accessible anywhere, and the rapid reduction of sensor costs and so forth. And so when I was in the toy business, we used to buy last year's sensors because they were cheaper than the ones that were being deployed in mobile phones and so forth. Now, buying a Bluetooth module or buying an accelerometer is fairly inexpensive. And so so with that said, the bill of materials is actually fairly scalable. Now you put the labor cost on there. If you're able to, build a customer-focused sales organization around great science, then you can drive those margins that are really meaningful. And then, like in the case, I'll use Sertl Robotics there. They work with some of the largest, construction firms in the world. And so the customer lifetime value is huge. So if they can expand just within those customers, those bookings could be immense. And so it's not just getting new customers, it's expanding the customer lifetime value with it. What are the adjacent technologies that you can add to your innovation that makes it even more meaningful, that makes it on the job site longer, and be able to get those returns that make sense.
So, we're a 5-year-old company and a hardware company, and I'm so excited to hear the affirmation you gave us, because right now we are collaborating with 2 other genius companies. Last year's winner, Sertl Imaging, and peers with us that were in the 5th cohort, Aerial Robotics. And the idea is that what I'm hearing as a soundbite for the listeners out there is that to have your hardware is fine so long as you're looking at adjacent technologies and creating strategic partnerships, and that the return is a longer return. So stay in the long view and create some great collaborations. Last question, although I have so many more, so hopefully we can have you back. You did mention your role as an adjunct professor. And so just for the students out there, what advice do you give students that want to get involved in deep tech?
Get out of the building, to quote Steve Blank. I think that the most important thing is that many entrepreneurs within deep tech, sit behind their computers and do all these simulations. And then when I'm on a pitch call, I'm like, so how many missions have you flown? How many units have you built? And they're like, well, no, it all works on the computer. I'm like, well, until you're out in the field, you really don't know. And so until you engage with customers, you don't know what the feedback is. I mean, if you speak to your mother about it all, it sounds great. But I think, first and foremost is get out to customers, find out not just what they think of it, but be a listener, listen to their feedback, and then make sure you're iterating based upon that. And if they tell you, no, this won't work, you should do it this way, stay tuned. Don't be so, stubborn in your ways that this, what's best. Your customers know what's best, and find out how much they're going to pay for it, if anything. If they're not going to pay for it, then you got to go back to the drawing board. And so, that's really the key. Diligence to me is customers. And so that's the key thing. And so I like to invest in companies that are on the cusp of commercialization. And one of the big, gulfs or chasms that we have in the automation industry is that they're able to get these innovation dollars, they're able to get these POCs, but they're stuck in this POC loop and unable to turn into recurring revenues. And so that is really, the key is like, how are you going to get that into recurring revenues? And so that's where we like to come in at.
Students that are listening, talk to at least 100 people that are not in your family. Listen to what has been said and be patient. That's we've been hearing so much about robotics from Oliver Mitchell, partner at FFVC. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to thank the Institute of Optics, Genius New York, Luminate Accelerator, AFWorks, Cider Technologies, Archangel Imaging and AUVSI. Special mention to our producer, Scott Fitzgerald at Rockvox Studios here in the heart of optics at Rochester, New York. By all means, I hope you subscribe to 360 Pulse. Find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We're also very interested in how immersive technology positively impacts safety and the human connection. And if you know a guest we should be featuring, please let us know. And you can always reach me at Jennifer@sertloptics.com.